know, Brett.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody out to our City Council work meeting for January 9th, 2019. We'll go ahead and get started. Are there any items on tonight's agenda that we need to review? Okay. Any future agenda items that the council members would like to add to the agenda? Okay. We'll move on to 3.1, legislative update. Tammy.
Okay. I won't rehash this out too much because everybody, for the most part, has been to at least one of our legislative meetings. But so far, we have met with Senator Fillmore, Senator Andrig, and Representative Notwell to go over our legislative focus for this year. One of the first things that we have been discussing with them is housing. We just want to make sure that they are willing to help us educate everybody up on the hill of what our housing situation is really like in Herriman. I'm going to show you a quick video that we show them right at the beginning of our meetings with them. When it's posted places, it will have a voiceover, but because of the places where we meet them, you can't hear very well. We just have some music in the background right now, but we'll give kind of a little bit of history of the housing, what the current demographics are, what the planned developments are that are still coming in, but it just kind of shows them where we were and where we will be.
Okay, you need to have it on here.
Should be on rear laptop.
Rear laptop.
Try front laptop.
Well, it wouldn't be on mine because I have an Apple.
I'm used.
I feel like the table's being segregated.
It was playing just a minute ago.
It's on your laptop.
It's on somebody's. It's not on mine.
Just a minute.
Which one were you playing it on? Okay.
He had it right.
Okay.
He's fixing the double screen.
Okay. And we're gonna get a separate one so that we can have everybody's stuff run on a separate one in here, and then that way.
When we were in the old building, I always blame the equipment and.
Yeah.
Okay, you notice that my laptop is missing today. I'm worn out. So I'm trying to,
Trying to figure out how to use a new.
I don't have a machine.
A billing.
Looks like you're staying.
however, this was running up there just as the meeting started.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for that, so some of the topics that we have also been discussing include transit and securing right-of-way, letting them know where we're at on doing that and why it's such a good idea to do it up and down all of the corridors. Our big asks this year are support for $4 million for roads and then $1.5 million for trails, as well as support for the community college. Again, pushing out that messaging regarding Herriman's current housing situations, the Utah State facility, anything else, Gordon? You talk a lot during these things.
I think that's what it was. This is my
Was I right or was I right?
We're also talking a little bit about the tier
Well,
1,
this
tier
brings up
2
random
for
things.
our public safety and the importance of trying to balance that back out just for recruiting and retention. So you'll hear some of that discussion as well.
Just a note on, appreciate obviously the stuff on the public safety, especially the tier 2, because that's going to continue to be an issue that's out there. But they'll to add to that as we meet with them or as we get ready for the session out there, there's also going to be one, and I know this is a little bit more since all the cops are getting all the attention this week, even though it helps us too. There's also going to be one bill sponsored by Representative Last, I believe, I think he's from St. George. But it has to do with the tier 1 system and the insurance premium tax that has been used to help fund that. Well, because that hasn't been clearly defined over the last several years, that insurance premium tax has been being diverted other places, which is leaving a gap now in the tier 1 side too. There is a bill being presented this year to shore that up and get it back where it was supposed to be, and that money put where it was intended from that insurance premium tax. That's where it was always designed to go, but because it wasn't clearly spelled out in there, they started to siphon off. So anyways, that's another one I think that benefits public safety, should be looked at.
Make sure we include that in
You bet. Representative Last.
Tammy, we got it now.
So it's just short, it lets them know where in the city each of these developments are, how many units to the acre, and what it looked like before, which is what they keep referring to, but what it looks like now. They can't say that we are not doing our fair share.
Tammy, when you get the voiceover on this, are you gonna put this on our website?
Yes. And we'll also tag all of the legislators in it as well, so. And then this is some of the traffic that we have already. Just to give them an idea of what we have right now. We knew not to make it very long or they.
You know what, another interesting tidbit to that, on the latter end when you're doing the traffic, I would love to see commute time. So have
Yeah.
somebody, time from some, a few locations going into various places where we know people work, because I do think that commute time will supplement just the visual of congestion.
Perfect.
Because if you're coming home on 134th at 5:30, at 6, it's a nightmare. This is where road rage emanates from, because it's just, you just sit there forever.
Speaking from experience.
I'm not saying Chief, I'm not engaged. Chief, I'm not engaged in road rage, nor am I advocating. I'm simply saying that's a situation where it might occur naturally in nature.
So, like I said, they've been very receptive to this, and most of them know. I mean, they've been out here, or they live close by, and so they're already aware of these concerns that we have, and so they're more than happy to help us as we push this out. With the Southwest leadership, they have been talking about trying to get a caucus group formed, the Southwest Caucus. So we have actually spoken to all of the legislators to gain some interest in that as well. And Senator Anderegg actually offered to help us secure a room. So it will be Monday mornings before LPC, but we're still waiting on the room confirmation on that. So once we have that, we will let you know, and we've kind of given all of that information to Mayor Staggs so that he can continue to push that out, and get agendas prepared for when the time comes, which is in just a few weeks. Let's see, I don't think that there's really anything else that has happened. We're still trying to get with 2 committee leaders, but they're brand new, and so it's been a little bit more difficult to meet with them. So we'll probably have to wait until it's closer to the session. And, do you have anything to add, any of you, from your perception of how these meetings have gone? I think they've gone relatively well. There was a few different discussions when it came to retirement, but.
Well, and it's interesting, I wasn't at that one, obviously, when you talked about, brought up the tier 2, but it's, like you say, it's very interesting. Unfortunately, another very sad reminder this week of that's out there, and now some representative senators, probably a combination of both, that have started to jump on that, which again, you have to take advantage when the situation presents itself. But again, it's sad that it has to be on the heels of another, obviously very tragic situation, in order to get people to realize that there's issues that need to be addressed.
Tammy,
Yeah.
from a sobering, transitioning away just a little bit, I apologize for the timing on that. One thing that I mentioned before that I still think we ought to do, and whether we take the lead, that would be my preference, is this idea of a press conference leading up before the session, because there are going to be so many bills. And so yes, of course, we're touching base with our representatives, but you're talking a pittance of the numbers that you need. So leading in when you have the media that are looking for stories that are certainly going to have accompanying bills, I think that we miss an opportunity because we can talk about our study, the results of our study, that's the timely element, and the bills that we're anticipating. Some of these numbers on visuals, I mean, we have the powerful information that I think would draw the media in. So from my perspective, I don't know how the council feels, and again, this is not really something that we direct, this is just a suggestion to you, Tammy, as communications, but I do think that would be powerful, and I think this is our opportunity to get some attention in the limelight prior to when you get in the session, and then it's about whatever bill is coming up for vote. You lose the opportunity for timeliness, but I think we could get it now.
So do you want that as just a Harriman thing? I am working with some of the, public relations and marketing groups with the other cities as well.
No, I think the power, I say it on the heels of your Southwest Caucus comment. I think the power is all of the cities joining together, but I would love for Harriman to take the lead, because Harriman is often the example thrown out around the table as to not doing our part. So I think Harriman taking the lead is where we win on this, but the power comes from all of the mayors coming in with the same message from the Southwest.
Okay.
All right, that's it.
All right, we'll move on to 3.2, Gina Road discussion. Blake, this is our favorite subject.
All right. Well, we had a request from Councilwoman Orn to dig into some information on Gina Road, so I went through her list and hopefully I hit every one of those items. So we'll get through this. This might be a little long on the slides, but I think it'll be really informative by the time we get done where we're at. So I just kind of wanted to start out with what are some of the major concerns that we're hearing from residents. I think since the first day I got on the job, I started getting phone calls on Gina Road. Mostly they focus on the poor road condition. The road's been very hard to maintain. There's a lot of concern with the traffic volumes. There's been a lot of growth on the west side of this area. There's a school that's come along. Just a lot of issues out there with growth and traffic. And then I always get asked future plans, when's the city gonna pave the road? When are you gonna put sidewalks in? When are you gonna make it so the kids can walk to school on the sidewalk or have lights?
Property owners.
And then the flip side of that is the private property rights. There's some people that really express their private property rights and tell us that we can't do things. There's some that say, come and maintain the road, please. So we get kind of both sides. So the challenges kind of stem from all that. The maintenance, we've been out and maintained the road and tried to fix potholes, and we've been yelled at and kicked off the property. Other times we've been told thanks. And then as soon as we get that done, we get phone calls that people are speeding down the road, potholes back. So it's challenging out there. There's always been funding availability. Gina Road is a general fund project, so obviously it's competing with every other project that the city has to do that gets paid for out of general fund. And then again, the competing residents' requests. Some of them want us out there, some of them don't want us out there. Some want the road closed, some want it open. So it's a very dynamic situation that we're in out there.
But it's their inability to come to a consensus that has halted any progress from the city standpoint.
That's been basically, that's spot on.
And I would guess that most of your complaints don't necessarily come from the residents right on Gina Road, they come from everybody using Gina Road to access.
It comes from both.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I wanna make sure we've talked about this several times, but whoever is watching or is gonna watch this later, if I were living in that area, I'd be asking the same question. If I didn't know, why doesn't the city do this? Well, the answer is we don't own that property.
Well,
So,
we'll get into that in a second here. So I'm gonna kind of give a history
My
lesson.
point is that most residents out there don't understand that part of it. I think the one thing we could definitely do better is educate them, put something on the website, Gina Road, whatever it is. We get so many comments about it and people don't understand it's not something we can just go do.
Mm-hmm. So we'll do a little history lesson here of where we've come to from 2002 to today, and then I'll get through each one of the properties. So I do have a handout as we get into this. This will be helpful. We just pass those down. This map you'll see in a second here, and we'll just kind of follow along as we go through the properties.
Is this the same one that's in our back?
Yes, this should be the same one, just a little more clear, hopefully. So in 2002, you can see Gina Road was a dead-end, unpaved road out on the west side of the city in unincorporated Salt Lake County. At some point in 2002, 2003, 7300 West was paved down to Gina Road, and about 150, 200 feet of Gina Road was paved. The aerial splits between 2002 and 2003, so I know it happened in there, I just don't know when the county did that part. So if we jump to 2005, you can see there's development starting to come up into the area. They've actually tied Gina Road in to a road over here so you can get out to Rose Canyon Road. It's still unincorporated Salt Lake County at this time. There were a handful of annexations that happened out through here between 2002 and 2006, and parts of Gina Road were incorporated in the city, parts weren't at this time. And then get to 2006, now that Hamilton Farms is built in, the school's there, there's a connection out to 134th, there's a connection to Rose Canyon Road, and this is where I think a lot of the traffic started picking up out there. And it's still in unincorporated Salt Lake County for the most part at this time, and the school's open. So, and then we get to 2017. We've got development on the west side. It annexed into Harriman City in 2009 with the Rose Basin annexation, and that's when the entirety of Gina Road was incorporated into Harriman City out of Salt Lake County. And so the growth has all been residential, and a lot of the zoning was done in the county and was brought over with the annexation, with the densities and stuff, which are quarter acre, third acre, half acre lots. So it's not high density housing, but it's housing nonetheless. So here's the map that I handed out, and I've numbered each one of the properties. The purple properties are properties that have been deeded public right of way.
Okay, but will you go back one slide, so everyone's just clear? And when is this aerial?
This was 2017.
Okay, so now look at 2017, okay? If you would see an aerial of this in maybe 2014, pretty much nothing on the 7300, west of 7300 West, very few things is listed there. So just understand that the impact of this is because there's been hundreds of homes built between 7300 West and the Harriman border. That there's the elementary school, see that gray thing right there, just right there past Gina Road? To get there, you gotta have to go down Gina or McQuiston, or you have to go all the way out on 131st, all the way down to Rose Canyon Road, cut down through Hamilton Farm subdivision and go to Butterfield Canyon. You're not gonna do it. So that's the issue, is everyone's coming down those two roads because you have hundreds of homes with an average of how many elementary school kids in them. Okay.
All right, so we'll just step through these 1, 2, 3, 4, just in order, about how each property was acquired and where it's at. So first one was called the Culver subdivision. It was deeded by plat, and it was deeded when it was in the county. And I've got a slide towards the end of this that shows which parcels came in when it was Salt Lake County and which ones came in since the land was incorporated into the city, which is very telling when we get to that point. So parcel number 2 is the Jets property. This was one that was purchased by the city in 2010. We had an appraisal. From conversations, it sounds like the council at that time had directed city staff to go out and start acquiring parcels. They went out. This was the only one that I could tell was acquired. There were some negotiations with other property owners at this time, but nothing was purchased. It sounds like negotiations fell apart. This one closed and nothing else moved forward with that. Parcel number 3 was the Reynolds Estates subdivision. Again, this was in 1995. So pre-city at that time.
So it was deeded to the county back then?
Yep. Most of these were deeded to the county, which I think shows that the county had always intended this to be a public right-of-way and a public thoroughfare. There was no cul-de-sac plan, and as these subdivisions came in, the county was requiring this dedication of the right-of-way.
But only 25 feet though, right?
So it was, their standard was a 50-foot right-of-way.
Right, so these are even short of what you had proposed as a 60, these are only 25 foot right away.
Our standard for a road with a school on it with the volumes this is 60 feet. So we'd have to go outside of our standard to do that.
Just like McKees. Okay.
So the next one, parcel 4, Barbieri subdivision, again, Salt Lake County. And they're generally 25 feet. Some of them are 26.2. It just kind of depended on where the center line of the road fell and where the surveyor set that was at. Parcel number 5, again, deeded to the county in 1995, so prior to Harriman being incorporated. Parcel 6 was one that was acquired since the city was incorporated and since this was annexed in May 8th, 2017. This was part of a development agreement, if you remember. And this property owner, the agreement they signed said that they would never subdivide this property if they built this house there. So this will always, as I can tell, be a one-lot subdivision right here. Parcel number 7 was also deeded to the city or to the county. Parcel 8, Avalos property. This one's kind of interesting. It's tied with parcel 9. So parcel 9 is another one that we'll get to, was deeded to the city in 2018. They were required to put pavement in out to the end of their property or put fire sprinklers in the house. I think that was part of the planning commission approval. In order to put pavement in, he had to get his neighbor's property. So he worked with his neighbor and his neighbor deeded the property to the city. And that was how that was acquired. So there was no purchase or anything with this one. It was just deeded to the city as public right of way.
And that was 9.
That's 8.
That's 8.
Number 9 was deeded by plat because that was the subdivision that needed to acquire a parcel. So 9 deeded the property over, and they should be paving their section this spring. They have bonded for that pavement. They just haven't put it in yet. It got cold on them.
Pavement meaning paved, curb, gutter, sidewalk, or pavement?
No, they were approved with a rural cross section, so it's an asphalt walking path and a gravel swell and then pavement or asphalt road. So, and it's 26 feet of asphalt they're gonna put in. Parcel 10 was another subdivision that in 2006, so in Salt Lake County, they were required to deed their 25 feet off to the front to the county. And then parcel 11 is our last one, and that's another one that was deeded to the county, the Petridge subdivision. So that is kind of a synopsis of all the parcels that are public right of way. Everything else I didn't show is still privately owned, but we'll get into that in the state statute here in a second about how that is viewed and how that can be used. There's also a 50-foot wide easement across. You can kind of see the green. This was an easement that was signed over between the property owners. I think that was done in 1992 or something like that, maybe 1988. It was a while ago, and this was just so that they could get out from their property across 7300 West. There were like 4 property, I think it was actually 2 property owners, Mascaros and Hamilton's out here at that time. And so they'd all signed the deeds so that they'd get across, and it moved on to all their assigns and successors at that point. So everyone also does have a right to cross across each other's property if there was a dispute there with this easement.
Just to clarify that, so the city might not have standing in this easement access, but each of the property owners have it. So if one property owner tried to shut off another property, or the mail, or somebody from going to his house, that other property owner can claim this right to keep it open for garbage delivery or other kinds of services. But the
Because of
city,
the easement.
with this particular easement, I'm not talking about the right of ways, but this
That makes sense, that's why they can't shut off the garbage. Unless
Yeah.
everyone agrees.
unless everyone agrees. Somebody,
Okay.
they all own a piece of that easement.
And even if they weren't part of the original, whoever owns it now still owns
It
a
went
piece
to
of that
assigns,
easement.
it went to the it stayed with property, not with people.
Okay, perfect.
So this was kind of an interesting one. This is the Kelch property. So we've talked about this one recently. They want to subdivide. It was kind of on the plat, hard to notice. We've never really looked at it in this detail, but it never was deeded, the corner. So you'll notice on your map in front of you, that corner isn't actually public right of way. It was saved as private right of way. And I don't know exactly what that means, John. Usually that means that the person that owns that
That's the
property.
first time, yeah.
That's kind of an odd
73
thing that we see, don't really see on a plat.
Where exactly is this on the map?
This is on the corner of 73 and Gina Road,
So just above number 1.
just above number 1 on that intersection. So, what's interesting is the county shows this as deeded right of way. So their records are incorrect according to the plat. We caught a handful of those as we went through these. We basically did a title search internally on every parcel along here, pulled everything off the county records and looked at their plats, looked at their deeds, and that's how we came up with all this information. So we caught, I think, 2 or 3 that are incorrect with the county.
So the county shows it is, but according to what's been recorded, it's not.
So if the title company pulled this, they would probably dispute what the county has on their county records based on the actual recorded documents. So here's the ownership map I was talking about. The red parcels are the ones that were deeded to the county. The green ones are the ones that were deeded to the city, and the dates are on there. The red ones are a little hard to read. They were easier when I was looking at it on my computer screen, but it basically shows you the colors that most of these parcels were acquired
In the
when
county.
the property was in Salt Lake County.
So like you said earlier, I think it's very telling that it shows that the county's intent was, as this continued to develop out, to acquire that right of way needed to complete this road.
Yeah, especially like this one right here is 1995, so that was a long time ago in terms of Harriman. that showed that they were planning on making this a public right of way.
1995 on there.
So yeah, so that was the information we found on the ownership. So then we looked at state code, and state code, section 72, says that a highway is dedicated and abandoned to the use of the public when it's been continuously used 10 years. So it's more than a prescriptive right, it seems like it's dedicated. And so I talked to John a little bit about that.
Self-executing, it just happens.
As long as they don't block off, right?
And there's some rules in there for blocking off.
So, maybe the only one in there that even has a claim to 10 years is Newton. Nobody else has a claim.
Which one is that?
And Miss Scarlstone?
They haven't ever blocked it up.
Now, I also want to qualify that though, is that probably goes just to the edge of where it has traveled. It probably doesn't go the whole 25 feet. So in other words, if people continually traveled on 12 feet of the property, that's where the continual travel was. It doesn't extend beyond that. So that,
And if these fences there and people aren't driving on that, I didn't know that.
and and I want to also make some clarification. So if you remember back clear, when it was in the county, this road didn't go through to anywhere before we incorporated. It just stopped. So it was just treated. It wasn't a cul-de-sac, but it was a cul-de-sac. It wasn't the public going down there. It was just the people that had access to
It's
the
a private
easement.
way.
It was a dead end.
So the actual access takes place once the connection of the through traffic went through. Then the public, then year 1 started of the county.
When was that?
In 2006 about? Or
I'd have to go back
2005,
and look at that
2005 is
Yeah,
what
so-
I think connection was really.
So while some of the, now, Mascaros has gone out and blocked the road, but they have done it after the 10-year period is over. So there has been some strange things that have taken place, but I don't think they qualified the level of having not had the continual traffic for the 10 years. So there's some stuff that, and so we're being kind of gingerly, but at the same time, we don't own enough to do the whole road pavement. So back to what Jared was saying, is we may be able to enforce through a court self-dedicating process, but that doesn't give us the full 50
The full
foot right.
right
It's
of way.
probably a smaller section than we need at some level. But I guess that's a question.
What's the scope of whatever you used?
What the public use, so we can't change it to 30 feet or 40 feet. It's
I
just,
just don't know what it is now.
we could go survey, but that hasn't been done yet.
Depends on how bad the bumps are, because when they're really bad, you go really low.
And you swerve out of that way.
It's
very
Kids are
true.
all walking through the grass and stuff. so there's.
I'll let him know.
And I did spend time on the phone today with a resident out there that had that concern going
Somebody
out.
graded my Christmas day, thank you. And so Bob, Mr. Newton is the only one that has blocked it off, so this is, his parcel's the only one this is not.
Well, that's my opinion. I didn't know Mascaro blocked off. I've litigated this with Bob,
Mhm.
but he won.
There are some rules about, they call them interruptions, and so since
What's that?
2010, or 2011, anything after May 10th, if they wanna close the road down, they're supposed to give us 72 hours notice. And then there's actually a thing in here that says that the agency that has jurisdiction over the highway doesn't want it blocked, you can ask them if they have to move it. So, that is in the statute.
But that's not until 2000.
So after 2011. So if they tried to block today, they would have to follow
They
those.
have to go through that process.
Okay, so, I had one more slide, I think I had some more stuff on here, but I didn't save and then we opened it before. The next slide was just questions, what do we do from here, what is our direction from council? Maintenance wise and traffic enforcement wise,
That was another one of my questions, is maintenance wise. When did we start maintaining this road? Why, how often, what does it cost us, what are we doing, why are we doing this road if it's, help me understand that.
I did speak with Monty a little bit before this, and jump in if you want to. Essentially, when this area was annexed into Harriman, the county had apparently maintained and done things for this road before. So when it annexed into Harriman, we just continued that on based on complaints that we would go out and snow plow or fill a pothole here or there.
That's correct.
And that's when Mr. Newton wasn't happy that we were maintaining on front of his property, and we had some interactions with him at the time.
What year was that annexation?
That was 2009, 2010 timeframe.
So all those right-of-way sections you saw, that the county had, those all became, they don't become ours, but they're the public, and now we're responsible for those public right-of-ways, and the county had been maintaining it. And so each time we annexed portions of county roads, they quit maintaining it, and then we started. So it was not a new decision, there wasn't a gap and it wasn't maintained, we just continued what they did.
And tell me a budget number, how much is it costing us every year to do that?
Yeah, we would have to hire a contractor with a grader and a roller, and it's about $3,000. That would include Gina and McHouston as well.
That's the grade, that's not the snow plowing, so that's just the,
That's the grading and rolling.
grading and rolling, so then
That's
there's snow
without
plowing on top of
material?
that.
And that doesn't, we have never charged for any material, that just comes from our stockpile at the yard. The wrap that we have stockpiled there gets used, we haul it out there and the contractor spreads it.
So a guesstimate, how much do you think how much do you think we're spending as a city every year to do?
How often are we doing that?
Yeah.
Including labor,
We
including
typically do
material.
it about twice a year, and then in between times, the grader work is about twice a year. In between times, we go out there and fill holes, drag a box scraper, take the loader back, drag the loader, do something to fill potholes when we get a lot of complaints.
The grading though is all done by a contractor.
That's,
You're contracting
yes,
that out,
yes.
right?
I've tried renting it and it's not cost effective to rent it, so it's done by a contractor about twice a year.
$3,000 each time
Yes.
approximately.
So we're looking at total, everything said and done, about $10,000 a year that we're spending on this road.
Just for the pothole.
For the between the potholes
In
and,
rough numbers, yeah.
and just in a real rough number, $10,000 a
What
year.
is the rough number in it?
10.
We put in numbers as material though.
No.
Snowplow's additional and the
Leave,
staff
yeah.
time with
We can
complaints.
see the number on material.
Takes a lot of time.
I think Blake spends about $15,000 a year on this road, so.
And 10 on McHouston.
And I know you do too, but we don't pay very much for it, so it's okay.
And suspension, let me think how much I spend on this road.
It's always been an issue, early on when after the corporation, Herman City's had a vision to try to get the money to get the residents to buy in to improve their roads. We were successful in several of those. And then the economy tanked and then there was no extra general fund money to just do that. And there was a lot of them that we couldn't get right away. To come up with the $100,000 that it takes to to improve one of these dirt roads and put the storm drain in, curb and gutter, sidewalk. It's $100,000. The council was willing to do that as long as they got the property. That shifted to 2010 when we bought the one property, which kind of surprised me because that veered away. I think that's during the election cycle that philosophy changed a little bit. But then it came back that was gonna be a lot of money to buy out the rest of the property, plus put the improvements in. The county's fixed before, I understand, was and they did this on Central West, they actually, to get the water line, well, one was the water line, which we did try to, those people's wells were drying up. We did that to try to be nice neighbors, outside the area limits. But the right of way, their approach was to charge each property owner assessor on each parcel. And no one quote me on this, and hopefully those who are listening don't quote me on this, but it seems like $20,000 per lot. Those kind of went away through the annexation, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm looking at Blake, because I will applaud him and his staff that did a wonderful job of digging up little detailed notes, right, Jonathan, on this process. And you have a very comprehensive look at this point, so we're just moving in the direction what you want us to do.
I have one other question. Through some conversations, I was told that that no one along here had the right to sell right away on this or deed right away because there was an overall agreement called, like, I can't remember, the Rose Basin Group agreement that held all the right of ways on the roads.
I have not seen that.
We didn't pull anything up like that was recorded.
Okay.
So we
Just
didn't
that
see
one
anything.
easement that the two property owners initially
Right.
signed, that's the only one, and that stayed with the property.
And to really dig
That
into
was
that
in
detail, make sure that's not been missed, we'd have to do a title report on every parcel,
Right.
which would be very expensive, but.
Right, and I wouldn't suggest that, I'm gonna see if I can obtain a copy of what this person was talking about, and then I'll probably bring it to you, John, and just see, cause I was confused as to, it seems interesting that someone could do that and then still be able to sell parcels and things like that, it was kind of confusing to me.
Yeah, without being able to read it, I can't.
Okay, I will see if I can obtain a copy, you guys didn't see anything like that in the research, okay?
I haven't researched it, so I don't.
Okay, seems like it would kind of pop up, it seems like would be kind of a big deal, it seems like an interesting kind of agreement.
Our newer engineer that we hired several months ago had 10 years of title experience.
And
So
he didn't see
he
anything.
pulled it up and he was pulling basically like he did at the title company, title search this whole.
Perfect,
So
okay,
he was very useful in this and he searched everything very comprehensively.
Okay.
We didn't see that.
Blake, your last, I guess the question is based on the parcels that have not been, that are still open, that we would need to obtain, do we know the current, I guess, appetite of those individual owners who is at least willing to talk and listen, those who are absolutely not, do we know that right now?
I think that was my question, my recollection last time we talked about this several months ago was the direction was go out and talk to them and see who's willing to give us the right of way. We'll see where we're at.
I was just counting them up there. I can tell you of two that'll be definite no's.
Who are they?
Yep. So you'd be between 4 and 5. I think we'll,
he's willing to sell it, he's not willing to
Sell.
give it.
which puts us in a bind because McHouston, we've got the direction to put the improvements in and acquire the right of way. So if we start buying here,
It
I'll
changes
let you
everything
call
over there,
and-
absolutely.
Yeah, we can't do that.
and then I think along here would be a tough one as well.
So that one between 6 and 7, are they
Yeah.
willing to give that over?
And then down here,
Yeah,
yes, I've gotten calls in recent weeks. They want to build a house, so they actually want to put pavement in. They want to build a house.
So I wouldn't have any problem with us acquiring that piece and going from 5 all the way to the end and just starting there and trying to do something.
I'm not sure across from 3, how interested she would be too, cause if you really look at her home, if you're talking a 60-foot right of way, you're right next to her garage.
That's where Gina's been tough because
Right.
some of these homes are right out
Yeah.
on the road.
I mean, this is gonna be an issue with a lot of these people, because at 50 feet, I mean, I'm looking, it's like, okay, you're right up next to the Barnes' front porch too, or the, but then if you go 60, it's pretty impactful, that extra 5 feet.
I would
Because all
suggest-
these we're gonna have to get, we don't own enough right of way on any of them, right?
I think we'll do we'll be bringing you a modified section, I think losing the park strip and other things are gonna have to happen.
Like you said.
Like we've looked at it.
So I think we will optimally always want to do the 60-foot, but I think whenever we come into a retrofit, we'll probably be recommending to the council to do a modified section.
Part of a solution, when we come back to that modified plan, we've looked at modified plans over the years, different, swell. And Sherry, I apologize, Senator West is blowing apart. That's what happens.
What?
Senator West is
You
blowing
think?
apart.
I tried that on
I've been out
everything,
there lately, but, the question, if we don't put curb and gutter in and hold that asphalt section, that's exactly what happens. It starts breaking off the edges because the water puddles and stuff just breaks away. And we got a major investment coming down the road on Senator West.
But it's impact fee eligible, 7,300 bucks.
Not to make improvements.
Not for maintenance.
But it doesn't just need maintenance.
I know, to
It needs to
but-
redone,
but-
it needs to be
yeah, but
completely
that's what we
re-engineered.
Still
Still
can't use
can't.
impact.
But in the study, it's a deficiency because the road was not built the way it should have been.
Right,
It's like any impact fee. Once you try to improve it from what it was, it's not, it's what the first construction is. So if you change it, it's called a deficiency and you cannot spend those monies on that road.
It's what, 6,000.
So what they're gonna look at is if we added new capacity to the road, because impact fees can only add new capacity. So if we got a 2-lane road and now we make a 2-lane road with curb and gutter, there's no new capacity, we just made a better road, so it has to come out of general fund.
what about, cause you're widening it, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's not,
Increased capacity, yes.
if we add it, so if we make like a 3-lane, we may be able to use
A
a
portion.
small
Portion,
portion
third
of impact fees, but all the curb gutter, the
Nothing
sidewalk,
significant, cause it's just for the additional.
Right.
yeah, just that additional piece. So we may be able to find a way to do that, we'd have to sit down with Alan and John and maybe squeeze some money out of impact
The
fees,
overall
but
cost
this is
of
going to
that
be
road is gonna be
a general
millions
fund.
of dollars, and that's not gonna be that much to put, I mean, it'll be something if we wanna widen that road beyond like a 66-foot wide
Maybe
road
the
or
county
something.
can help with that, cause it's gonna be U-111.
So, just moving back to Eugenia Road itself, what would you guys like to do?
I have one additional question. What's the last projected cost to construct this road?
We brought that to you last
Yeah,
year,
I
I'm
can't
trying to
remember what it
remember.
was.
I think
It
it was
seemed
about
like with the
3 million.
right of way purchasing, it was about $1 million, and it was about 700,000, I think, cause we had
It was
storm drain.
$250,000 with just doing the road without the right of way, we got it all given to us, it was $1 million if we were to go buy it.
We're gonna have a little struggle with storm drain there because there's nowhere for the extra flows for the road to go, so we're gonna have to do some detention downstream
So
somewhere.
if we take the right of way out of the equation, we're probably 700,000.
Does that sound right, Jonathan? Do you remember? I
Those
think
were a
we're
year ago
first.
numbers, we'd have to certainly look at new
I'm
costs.
just getting
So
for
we're
a
pretty
ballpark.
safe
That's-
at $1 million.
I'd say 700,000 per million.
Yeah.
Because of inflation.
These infill projects always end up running up a higher cost.
We'll have to
because
adjust things in
negotiating
people's
properties.
driveways and stuff.
Can I tell you my rule, that it will always cost more and will always take longer.
So, I'm sorry, is Gina Road itself impact fee eligible then? No. Okay, because of what was the original construction? Wait, Alan, are you shaking your head no, or are you shaking your head yes?
We've never put it on our
It is not.
plan.
So,
It's not a-
impact fee
So it'll be a
eligibility,
general
we have
plan.
to do a master plan, create an impact fee facilities plan, show that there's use. Then they have the existing deficiency portion or, how much is it lacking? There's an equation that goes with that, so it'd be all tied to a new impact fee facilities plan. So we will be bringing to you later this year, but,
Yeah.
so we can look at it at that point.
What's that?
What would it cost to go from just that east side from 5 down to the end?
So you're saying
From number 5 down to the end, where we can get that one piece of right of way that sounds like we could get pretty easily. We have a straight there, we have everything, what would it cost just to do that part?
I'd have to look at it and see, it's hard to shoot from the hip. There's just so many variables in this infill stuff where property, driveways, mailboxes, utilities and stuff. But that looks like that's about half the road, so you're probably looking at about $300,000-400,000.
So, in my opinion, and just my opinion, that's really at this point, the thing that I would be willing to consider is constructing that portion of the road, since we have a property owner that's willing to work with us. The other portions where we're not getting the right of way, I kind of stand by my previous statements that I've made, where I'm willing to look at it once we get the right of way. And if we have somebody who's willing to do it, and we have a section where it would make sense, let's do that. But on the other stuff where we don't, wait until they make some changes. But that's,
I'd be hesitant to do
A portion.
the portion
Me too.
for several reasons. One of which is then you're encouraging people to go down there, and that causes a bigger problem with the problem owners.
And the other side of that is again, the competing projects that are out there. Agree that obviously getting another piece of right of way that helps give you a longer contiguous piece certainly opens up the opportunity to look at constructing that piece. But again, I'm not gonna commit to say that I'm willing to do it because there's still several other competing projects out there for those dollars that we would really need to see. And to Jared's point, I think as soon as you construct just a portion of that, it potentially just exacerbates that
Yeah,
problem.
when you think about construction and off the O&M side of it, and I'll speak to this, when you do a section and you stop and you go back to dirt, that first section
Just
will break
jump.
away and run away. So when you connect back on, you gotta go back in and cut back in.
Yeah.
And start a new section coming out. That's why Gordon knows this about me. We don't do half the roads, we do
Yeah.
partial roads.
But I agree that I'm still in the position too, that we're not gonna purchase right away.
If, just piggybacking on that, the money you said is in escrow, I mean, this is beyond my ability to control this, but I would kind of not suggest that they put in asphalt right there, because it's gonna be the exact same thing. A couple of years, they're gonna come in and rip it all up. It seems like a whole huge waste of money.
Part of a fire requirement,
Um,
he'd have to put fire sprinklers in if he didn't have, asphalt there, so.
The only thing is that's not, at least not the city's expense.
Yeah, it's true, but I mean, it could be an
Waste of
escrow to
It's
go
still
to,
a waste
it's
of money,
just
agreed.
unfortunate that we're gonna just throw money out the window, that is substantial amount of money, asphalt's not cheap.
Yeah.
To just go, okay, then it's just such a temporary fix for so much money. Anyway, okay,
Yeah, I think they checked the numbers and asphalt was cheaper than fire sprinklers,
yeah, yeah.
so.
Well, I have fire sprinklers, cause I can afford that.
So let me just throw one last thing out. We get challenged on maintenance. And so we believe we have the ability to maintain where the prescriptive easement is. In the one parcel, we don't have the right to do that. And so
Do it everywhere but there.
Or else we need to talk to that particular
We do.
parcel and we just say, let's figure out how to come to an agreement and have an official agreement that says we're gonna maintain the
Sounds like
road.
that's been attempted.
I know, but there's some softening there, he's tired of the
Sure.
headache too. He's just tired of the headache, you know. I'd be glad to chat with him, and I'm definitely not saying that I wouldn't want
We
to.
could actually probably do a better job maintaining if we had an agreement like that, put the right material down and put some magnesium chloride back on it, which will harden the road. Wyoming, we talked about this in the Schneider to staff, that stuff can harden up, and that's Wyoming roads, highways, it's phenomenal.
Okay, then let me just see, I'm gonna obviously circle back with these residents and chat with them about stuff, and so we'll just see what we can do, cause I know there was another gentleman that was at our council meeting last too, that was upset about even the way it's being graded, and it sounds like it probably because we're kind of a little bit restricted on how well we can do it. Okay,
Well, to Jared's point, I think in a lot of respects, we need to be careful continuing to maintain areas that we don't have responsibility
right,
over.
right, and, but I do, again, you know, I hate bleeding $10,000 every year for something that just
Oh,
needs
agreed,
fixed.
absolutely.
we had a resident come out and there's a trench dug across the road that exists today.
Right,
And so they go out and do things like that, and we've been hesitant to go fill them in. And so I'm just telling you, it's far more dynamic than just us not maintaining it. They're actually
Well, in
damaging
that
the
case,
road.
I mean.
so John, yes, is there
What- yeah.
some sort of an agreement
'Cause
that
if-
we could draft, that
Sure.
something simple, that we'll just say we're
If he's
willing,
willing, I could probably do it on
or even for
on a piece
all
of
of them,
paper.
really,
Because if we are paying the cost to maintain it and then they come in and
Destroy it.
vandalize it,
yeah. So, and it
They
even
put up
sounds
some
like,
signs saying they did it on big pieces.
yeah,
Just
Sounds
They
like
owned
we could even circulate the agreement through all the property owners so they all understand what we would be agreeing to do for the time being.
I hesitate to make agreements from a precedent standpoint on property we don't have, that we don't have the right, we have a prescriptive easement, not a right of way. That's my concern, because I don't wanna see us running into that same situation again in the future. But that's just a concern, I don't know if that would stop me from saying yes or no on that.
And I think if we can get Houston done, it will soften the impact on Gina also, because people are always gonna be more likely to take their kids down the pavement than they are down the dirt.
And we're hoping to meet with the McHouston residents over the next 2 weeks. We got our design, about 90% right now.
Okay.
Just met with our consultant on Monday. And things are looking pretty good with the layout. We went with the modified cross-section. And so we were just messing with driveways on Monday to make sure we didn't give anybody a weird driveway. So
Good,
it's looking good.
okay.
We get that done, then all the traffic will just move over to there.
And then we'll all be mad because there's too much traffic.
It's gonna be a tough one to win.
It
This
is,
is-
we'll get there, we'll
Does
get there.
staff, does the council have any other comments they'd like to make? Or
Thanks, Blake, appreciate your work.
does
Yeah.
staff need any further direction, or do you have what you need?
Lots of information.
We'll probably be
there.
back talking to you
Thank
about it as we bring this agreement, to have you look at it and see it.
We'll keep this, make sure we don't lose track of all this information.
Yeah, can you forward us?
Yeah,
that
if you could
little-
send us all a copy, that
That
would be
would be
extremely
very
helpful.
Presentation, yeah.
Will do. Okay, item 3.3, review of City Council Bulletin, board and committee assignments for 2019.
So, council members, a year ago, when we gave out board assignments and Mayor Pro Tem, the task right back in January, our first meeting in January this year. And so, we talked about what you may propose and work with the direction by council. And we're ready to start writing and make things happen. And you say anything more than that, or is that explanation?
No, I think we just need to,
I
We
think
just need to go through the list.
Last year,
Yes.
fine job.
Yes, thank you.
Well done.
Time to pass on the sash.
well, I
The
think,
tiara, that's all I heard.
I think last year when we came in as new members of the council and such, my recollection is that we talked about rotating that on an annual basis, at least in a 4-year period, to try and give everyone opportunity to serve in that capacity.
So it's not because I didn't do a good job.
No, absolutely not.
It's just simply
Wear that tiara
time for
proud.
a new mayor.
So like say, just based on the fact that our discussion previously and where we're at, I think I would be in favor of, again, rotating that duty and at this point, based on just experience on the council and election cycles, those types of things, I would say that Jared would be the next in line to go
How dare you?
to double dog.
I could not agree more.
So
Yeah.
I think that
Nicole's
that's.
revenge for me nominating her for senator.
Something along those lines.
That's just.
I'm supportive of that.
So in May meeting, we shall make that.
We'll make that
part of
motion.
that.
Yep.
I'm trying to find
Jacqueline is still in
I know, I
that.
just need to go find that list too, give me a minute here.
Next is the, council asked me by email to bring back, this being from the December meeting about discussion with other commissions and board, council board assignments for review. And, that is emailed out all 5 of you last Friday, I believe. Thursday, Friday, I lost track what day it was, but it was an email. That information, we reviewed, all the detail and gotten some of the legal side and how the incorporation articles are written for the bylaws of some of the board and committees. So if you have questions, John, can give you an opinion on those.
So should we just go down the list?
Oh, thank you. There it is.
Yep.
Everybody got what they need?
And then Tom,
We'll just, I brought a copy and take a copy for
I'm gonna pull it up now.
So I'm happy to
Anybody want a
continue.
copy?
save the trees.
No?
I'm happy to
Alright, we're good.
continue on the, I was one of the voting members, Brett, Ryan, Tammy on the league.
okay,
On the, what?
LPC.
Oh,
LPC.
gotcha. Okay.
And then with
Are
the,
we using all of our voting members on LPC? Okay, that's 3 staff, or I don't know.
We have
It's one
three, so
council
it's one
member
council
and-
member and Tammy
Right,
on our part of
Tammy
that
and
study.
Jared, is that right?
have been for several years.
So, Brett, you prefaced just a second ago about some of the bylaws and things. I guess the first question to ask is then is there any of these in particular that may have something out of just a council appointment or a council action that we need to be aware of as we go through some of these?
There are a few things we can talk about. The ones were just recently signed to Mayor Watts from Mayor McAdams for the ETA funds, those as appointed by the county mayor.
Is that the
Approved by county
UTA
mayor.
advisory board
Yes, ETA advisory board and
Okay.
transportation advisory board.
and transportation?
Mhm.
Is that, is that the Transcom or is that a
No,
different one,
that's
sorry?
not trans.
Oh, the Salt Lake Regional
That's the fourth quarter,
Transportation Committee.
which may or may not remain in place as we will not have a new county mayor.
And that's not designated, it'll be a Herron person anyway, those are by his appointment, or her, who may be in the future. And they are removed by the county mayor.
So I guess my question is then, well, is it anticipated that whoever the new incoming county mayor is for the remainder of the term will make changes, will reappoint those, or is it anticipated that those that are currently in place will stay in place? And we would need to then, I guess, petition or have a conversation with the county mayor, or is it anticipated they will come in and
Make changes.
make
Typically,
changes?
because there's so many board assignments, if that, we call it the interim mayor, gets selected at the end of January, I've heard it's gonna probably happen January 26th possibly. I won't vet out who, I've been told who the top runners, I say runners, because there's a few. But they could make those, remove and make new assignments. But typically those, they got so much more on their plate that those are not that big a deal to them, so let them ride until later on down and then see if they need to make adjustments. Always the public or the council has the right to petition and have make a request.
But nonetheless, it sounds like we need to wait until that person is in place before we really worry about
Yes, that's correct.
those, because we can't change them today ourselves.
Right.
And we would need to have that,
And
if we
I'm not
wanted to change,
sure
we would need to do that by
Who's acting
petition.
as I think deputy mayor's kind of acting in right now.
She is, yeah, Erin.
Thank you.
Erin, with that,
I did get the
Which-
confirmation on that, yes.
But she'll be getting our letter anyhow, so she,
true, we could start
And
that
then,
conversation, but they're probably gonna
when
defer
we-
it to whoever comes in
Right.
anyways. But we could at least
We looked
petition.
Usually, most boards and committees just want a letter of what we recommend to those boards. There's a couple that require a little bit more work. Mosquito abatement requires a little bit more than just a letter. It requires, whether they're asking for a resolution, it's not very clear, but you can go back to state statute, ask for that resolution, and we have one prepared. We also, I think, everyone assumes that COM and COG are mayor assignments, and that's not true. The Conference of Mayors does say the mayor, but we all know that there are elected officials that serve on COM that are a council member or
Just
or
even
staff
a high
has been
ranking.
appointed.
I was gonna say high
And we
ranking
don't have
staff
any-
can be
They
appointed.
really don't have any governing powers other than kind of make recommendation reviews collectively and make recommendations to more legislative issues up on the Hill. COG, here again, there's a lot of different members, other mayors that serve on COG. It talks about the first class. John, you wanna say anything more about that?
Sure.
And COG, in their first meeting, they actually give all the COG assignments from Public Works one, Wasatch Front assignments.
COG is a quarterly?
They've kind of changed it, they alternate now back, it used to be every month, and now they go almost like a quarterly, they rotate that back with COM, so that.
So COG is quarterly and COMTIP picks up the other months.
So my reading of the constitution and bylaws for COM is that if the mayor wants to participate, he's an automatic member. And you can appoint others, but they may not be able to vote. At least that's what the rules say.
So they really have no, other than giving direction to legislation.
we're given our concerns and adequately representing the council's wishes in the city, et cetera. We want to
Appoint.
someone.
Right, and if you choose wish, you can make that recommendation to the chair, and that's why they call it Conference of Mayors, but, is there other boards, committees you're looking at? Those are the ones that probably have a little more of a process, others are very.
What about the Joint Policy Advisory meeting?
It's an
JPAC,
appointment from Wasatch Front, so
yeah,
whatever happens with Wasatch Front, we'll
But
see where that comes through.
but typically, elected official usually attends those meetings, they're not part of the board or committee, but they are part of Wasatch Front appointments. So those come out of the COG appointments too.
It's kind of the same deal there. I mean, they'll all be getting our letter, we'll be communicating with them all our situation.
And just, it's just petitioning them to make, to just.
Recognize it.
Change.
I just keep looking at John, cause we, run back down the hall, trying to make sure that we've tried to cover all the issues, and Jacqueline's been involved with that as well, and, as we was tasked a couple weeks ago.
So, that's the fourth quarter, right? That was used different names and acronyms.
Yeah.
This will be the caucus.
This is an appointment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that one.
What is this one?
Transcom,
Just be helpful.
Sidebar,
that's part of COG.
just curious, what are you guys discussing?
We're just
Going down, I'm just asking.
We're just looking at some of those other ones that are down, these, just trying to understand, make sure we have a full understanding
The
of
names versus
these couple
acronyms.
right down here.
The
And
advisory board was an appointment.
and which ones are tied to other appointments versus, maybe a county mayor appointment or such.
Yeah, the county mayor appointment, and then you have, COG that you get other assignments out of.
So what are you needing from us right now? You just need us to fill, are you wanting
I'm
the
just doing
appointments right now, or are
We
you
wanna do
wanting?
what?
I'm doing as I was directed, to bring this
I think
information.
going into our public meeting, I think it's good if we at least have an idea of where interest lies from each other and who can, everyone has tight schedules, obviously, and who can, fill really what roles to make sure that once we get in there, we can, I guess, expeditiously move through making those
Can we
recommendations.
check off the ones that you don't want changed, so we can start.
So I'd like to continue on UFA.
And I'm fine on South Valley Sewer. You're good with the league still, right, Jared?
I'm good with
Sherry, you're still good with Wasatch Front, right?
Unless Pam was, she left, wasn't here to kick me off, so I
Well,
guess.
Gina Rowland, she's here for, she's been very happy with it.
No, I'm good with
Okay,
garbage.
so I think,
I mean, unless somebody just is excited and wants to take over garbage, it's fine.
honestly, I think that consistency for those boards is important as well, so I wanna avoid changes where we can. Cause I think consistency is important, so I think those major ones that we're all involved in at this point is, I don't hear anyone saying that they prefer a change. I think it's, the top portion of that list is the ones that we're really dealing with right now, is that correct?
Yeah, just so we were the same.
And Jared, you expressed interest in
With
the
Southwest.
Southwest Caucus, okay?
Especially since I'll be up there for LPC Monday mornings anyway. We've spoken with several of the members in the previous months as we've got some of this done.
I have no problem with that.
Where is it at?
Let's make it a little.
Yeah, it's the Southwest, it says Southwest Mayor's monthly meeting, keep going up a little bit, it's in the smaller grouping, keep going. And you're right there.
Oh, okay. So this one was changed to Jared.
So I hear, I'm looking for a little bit of Bob.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
What's the UTA advisory board, was that an appointment also?
That's an appointment.
That's an appointment, so it's another one we'd have to.
So that's an appointment through COG. COG's one thing you need to be aware of with that, COG's appointment specifically requires that it's a member of COG. So if I'm no longer a member of COG, I will no longer be a member of the UTA advisory board. And there is already somebody in place to make to replace, because there's an alternate already in place, which means that we would lose the seat on the UTA advisory board, and I would assume it would be quite some time before a member from our council would be considered to be appointed back to the UTA board.
Is there a term on that?
It's, they've started at least, the first one was to go through at least the end of, 2019.
So if we make the change in content, that one will fall off the list, I think.
Okay.
And who, okay, who's the replacement? Who's the backup?
Mayor, one of the mayors from one of the other cities.
I was thinking it's Mayor Hale, but he's already on it. Is it
Mayor,
Dowling?
no,
Silverstein?
no.
No.
It's one of the, it's
I'll
one of
just
the
go
other
through them
mayors,
all.
sorry, there's already another mayor that is acting as an alternate.
East side or west side mayor?
East side.
I do know that. I
Okay.
just didn't know it was over that.
So who should do COG?
Well, I think that if possible, Com and COG should probably be the same person
Yeah, me too.
for the consistency side of things. I think we're all, I know, have other job responsibilities and those types of things, but I'll try, I can probably do that one if you guys would like me to.
You're the
That would be
COG.
fantastic.
You're the COG.
So, and
I've
just,
been called worse, thank you.
and just to be clear in saying that, then that triggers what the mayor was just discussing with the UTA, so just to be clear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just saying that if the collective of the council is to make that change there, I'm willing to try and facilitate that in my schedule. But again, now everyone else has to decide if they're comfortable with that secondary piece being triggered by making that change.
I absolutely am.
I think it's an unfortunate consequence.
That's what I would say. It's a valuable seat, so I
It is.
am unhappy with the result of that. But
Me too, but it just has to fall in line with what the other decision that's already been made, so. I agree. I hate the idea that it has to be a consequence of it also, but what it is.
Takes care of
Yeah,
common common job.
I guess that's what I get for raising my hand.
What about mosquitoes? You got me to.
Honestly said.
you seemed passionate.
Is this
I
Brett,
am passionate
the
about
mosquito
mosquitoes. I
abatement,
hate
is that one
things
that just
dying
needed a
too much now.
resolution?
Yes, it is. That's when they're actually asking, when you look at their bylaws, it doesn't ask for this letter of due, but Brian was very clear because the state statute.
Well, it's a district, I think it was.
Yeah.
I would be supportive of Sherry.
It's fantastic.
She has said she's gonna give the mosquitoes the what for, so I'm good with that.
It's just an important thing, especially for livestock.
It is.
I see,
Yes, that's
And then, JPAC, so what, we have to send the,
So we have to petition
we
that.
have to petition it.
Mhm.
But we have to petition it, do we have somebody that's willing to do that? Want to petition for that?
Did we give you three? I could maybe take the Wasatch Front one, but I need to know time. And,
This meeting will be February 21st, 1:31 at the state capitol.
oh,
Due to the change in board structure, we have not solidified the other 3 dates yet. There are 4 meetings.
so that's when I can possibly.
That one does move around, so it might Park City or. Just be aware of that.
I'm good with,
Yeah. Good point.
Thank you.
And is it something, is
I
it
didn't know
something?
about the new Americans, it says 2020 census. Mayors have been, there's a lot of mayors on that committee, there's also a lot of staff, a lot of planners part of that.
On which, what are we talking about?
It's called the New
That one I think would
Americans.
be great for staff.
It's a 2020 census, I can send you the agenda, I think the meeting's coming up next week.
looks like the 14th, yeah.
I think it's more of an informative group than really anything else.
You're just hearing what the census is going to be doing,
It's
and
really
then we have
not
to
a.
report back.
So does it make more sense to have staff there?
What's that?
I think.
Staff's already going to.
Not this staff.
One.
That's why you,
Like
that's why you.
Craig going to it now,
So
but
we should be covered then if we already have.
We'll come in and make reports.
we should,
back.
but we wanna make sure we get ourselves right.
Yes.
So we need to have an official.
It's taxes, it's everything to us.
So
Okay, so
I'm hearing that some of the staff is going right now, but if we
Is this a figurehead
Put this-
position? If so, I am.
if we
in.
put this maybe on, maybe Michael in the planning department, and then make sure it's covered, is
I'm
that
just telling you.
sufficient?
I will go apart from Michael, but, what I'm seeing the emails from that is it's going out to all the mayors, so
It's an
I don't know
open
if they're
invitation.
attending or not, so.
Open invitation, okay.
So who should we put in that?
It should be on this list.
Michael?
Are you
Dave,
okay if we
right?
do that, Michael?
How about Matt and Craig? That's an old joke, if you remember.
Speak before or after? I said after my time.
That's-
After my time and then
It
before
was the
my
last
time.
census.
Oh.
That one will be
You tell
transportation
them.
coordinating,
Looks like we got-
I think that takes care of that.
What about
Yes.
That's a con.
And so, I saw who will tell me, and the only thing with that, right?
It's an appointment through con, so I may end up.
I still didn't understand.
But he would automatically come off of it because he's not in COG.
Transcom.
Yeah, Transcom, yeah, there's a lot of signs come out, we actually, if they do any of those signs on the public works end, that you're attending that,
So I want
Like
whatever
for marijuana.
Wasatch Front assignment is a good one for an elected official. I'll help out there.
Well, it'll be Wasatch Front, then you'll have to go and they'll make appointments at the first meeting.
I just tell you, the
Oh, I
quarter
see.
preservation money that comes out on the public works side,
Yes.
it's one when Mayor Watts coming off, so I told him that's always one we wanna try to have, we actually had a seat at that table, but everyone else has got wise to that, and it grabs pretty fast, that's when it's tough to get
So,
those ones you wanna
number
focus on.
seven.
For Wasatch Front, right?
What's that?
For Wasatch Front?
somebody needs
It's
to
the,
be
it's the
reassessed.
public works quarter.
This is,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a county.
Quarter
money.
preservation.
But we're gonna,
So you
are we
do
going
this
to suggest
application,
that
it
somebody
goes
would
to
be willing
back
to
to
do
COG
that
for
if,
approval,
we'd
after the
like to
committee approves
reappoint
it, and then it goes to
certain
the
person,
county,
or do we
which
just
one?
leave it
And then
This
approve the
one,
money,
the
go back to
county
the
regional
But
transportation.
to reiterate
Petition, we need to
or
have
put the
some-
emphasis
Yeah.
on exactly what you're saying in terms of the importance of a seat on that, when Kelvin, mayor of Cottonwood Heights, positioned himself on that, he was able to completely change the rules to the benefit of cities that never would have been able to have a penny.
Well, it's more interesting what he got approval for to fund a parking structure.
But to his, I mean, kudos to him for
Figuring it out.
positioning himself and making funds that previously would not have been available to his community available.
We were
But it just
frustrated when it
reiterates
happened.
Brett's point that that is a very important seat.
It always has been. I
So,
can tell you this, over the year, we've probably guesstimated $32 to $35 million out of that over the years.
So I would help. with
Corridor
that.
preservation.
what about, okay, so the Salt Lake County Regional Transportation Choices Fund working group, we have to, the county appointed, but if we're going to send a letter, we need to probably also state that this person would be glad to take over in that position in representing our city. You know, and we should probably send a name with that, so.
And I think that your choice of Clinton to be on the COG and COM, I think he has some network already built in place, he could actually work that and have to get that recommendations made.
Sorry.
Wait, what just happened?
You got stuff.
Just saying, I know where he's connected.
Just get volunteer.
So that's the fourth quarter one, right?
That's the fourth goals.
And are you good with that?
Well, when do they meet?
It doesn't say.
It's by appointment, they just push that day when the money's coming in.
They met many
Just
times
recently.
beginning of the year, when we went to go get the funding for the U-111 realignment,
4 million there, 1 million out in the southwest, and there was some other small
some
ones.
park stuff, but at this point, there's no scheduled meetings moving forward.
Probably
because
talking
they're waiting
about
for the new mayor.
next,
Are you good
They
with
don't
that?
know what the new mayor's gonna do, so.
I'll give it a whirl. I'll report back.
Well, and at some point, it doesn't, I mean, if it becomes overwhelming, we
Yeah.
have to make some adjustments, right?
I'll have to work through that.
and like always, if you want staff to help attend, we've already given some staff assignments to be there to help you keep track of things. If you don't want them, let us know too.
I've never
I
had
think
that
staff
problem.
is always beneficial to have there.
Me too, I've never said, go away.
You know, we gave Justin a few assignments this last year, he really enjoys doing those, talking trash and talking.
Yeah, he's
Talking
good at
crap.
talking trash.
Likes to come talk crap too.
Do you have any more that we need to look at?
What's that?
Do we have more that we need to look at, or are we good?
That's all on this sheet.
Unless they
Do you need anything?
so.
Do you need any further direction from the council at this point?
If you wouldn't mind telling me again which ones, just list the ones we need to petition.
It's gonna be the Salt Lake County Regional Transportations. And the other one that was, if I understood correctly.
Mosquito abatement.
We don't, it was the UTA one.
Those two are petitions, mosquitoes is resolution,
Yes.
Con and Connor.
everything else is letter.
Okay.
Which UTA one?
Letter ain't showing up.
Well, the UTA advisory board we
Is
got
the
because it just
automatic
automatically goes away.
Oh, that's right, it was appointed by Canberra, but that one's gonna,
The alternative.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was actually
Yeah.
appointed by COG, it wasn't appointed by the county mayor.
that was by COG?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? We will move on to item 3.4, discussion of Rosecrest Business Park Part 39 and 35.
All right, oops, okay. So you've seen this before, this is Salt Lake Community College, we're gonna be talking about these two, this is Real, Mountain View Corridor. We're gonna be talking about these two pods, one of them is 39, the other is 34, and I can't remember which is which. What's happening is these two pods are being sold by Rosecrest to Wasatch Development. They've already started, which is a good thing, because these have sat dormant for a long time, wanting to get a business park going. They've already started developing a plan for an office park and for other retail going into that site. And so as part of the sale, they're looking at doing a plat. So I'm going to show you these two plats quickly. The first one, this is Mountain View Corridor. This is this Real Vista goes into the Real Academy and Salt Lake Community College. What you see here is 2 acres of property that's being dedicated to the city as part of right-of-way, another 2.5 acres, so a total of 5 acres. The reason for this is the slope coming down from the Mountain View Corridor and the slope from the road. So what's happening is this is getting dedicated to us as a slope easement, which is great, so Wendy can come out and mow and take care of it. We've been
What's not
talking
slope
to-
easement, it's dedication.
Yeah, it's a dedicated, it's an easement, it's a dedicated right of way. We don't want it, well, Wendy wants it, if she can maintain and mow this thing. What we've talked to the developer about,
And you're being facetious there, just for clarification, correct?
facetious I was, I'm sorry, ma'am. So what we're talking about here is, the developer has, in our discussions, has agreed to put a retaining wall along this section here. And, well, I'll go to another slide. Along here, and then in return, then we would not maintain this property. They would like us to give them that property, they would maintain it, be part of their development. So that, the discussion tonight is not to approve anything, but to get your nod that when this is recorded, if they come back and put a retaining wall there, then we would give that in lieu of not having to maintain the property.
A
How much-
lovely retaining wall.
How much
That's
space is
great.
this?
This is about 2.5 acres, so it's a total of about 5 acres. It's not really defined, because I don't know if the retaining wall is gonna go there or there, so I'm just telling you the total dedication of right-of-way is about 2.5 acres.
Was this space counted as open space for the project?
As long as we see a street named after Cantona or Giddings.
That would be on the condition. I know I can put that street right here into the project.
I mean, for me,
I'm
it's,
seeing some of the others down there.
for me, it's an easy
miss-
nod.
Yeah, what are we gonna do besides pay money to maintain it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gordon, for me, it's an easy nod.
I agree, it's just a cost to it.
Okay,
Proper
Wendy, you
retention.
just lost some maintenance.
Well, there's so many benefits to that. I mean, obviously, the fact that we have Wasatch looking to purchase that property, they have a huge vested interest in the success of that to support everything else that's going around there. I think there's a great partnership, and obviously for us to not have to maintain it, and there's an expense of obviously building the
They're
retaining
going to
wall. There's so
improve
many positives. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
this won't come back to you probably for a couple months after it's recorded when they're bringing the plans and all that stuff. So it's not, I'll just remind you that we had this meeting by January, a couple months from now.
We just actually struck the timing because we thought we was gonna have to tell Wendy she had an area to landscape and maintain. She was
Yeah, because you're not gonna be able to use it for anything besides a cost, yeah.
It's a nice slope.
Do you need any further
Nope, I don't
instruction?
need anything, I just wanted to make sure, when they start doing their plans, they incorporate a retaining wall.
Okay.
But I didn't want to start
Any
doing that
further
on our
comments or
property.
questions by the council?
So to be absolutely fair, I already signed on this plat.
Yeah.
This plat is done.
Okay.
I don't know if it's been recorded,
It's not
but
recorded yet.
it's been waiting.
Alright, so we moved to item 3.5, recommendations and reappointment of city boards and community volunteers. Wendy?
So next month, you all will be reappointing our boards and volunteer members. When we changed the ordinance, you changed it to a minimum of 3 people on each committee. Of the 8 committees and boards that we have, 6 fall under my umbrella. Monty has one, and there's an economic development one. Some are not functioning right now. Some are very functional, Arts Council, the Trails Committee, the Garden Committee. The one that I'm struggling with the most is the History Committee, and Councilmember Orr and I have talked about that a little bit. We do have Stephanie Johnson, who has been on that committee for a long time. She is willing to continue serving. And then we have Alexander Hill, who is also interested in joining that committee, but we'll need one more for that. We're always looking for new faces for our boards and committees, so just keep that in your mind if you know somebody in your areas that, or anywhere in the city that might be interested in serving and would be a valuable asset to us. We'd love to have them. So we'll be bringing those names back to you in February, and reappointments will happen then.
I have a suggestion on that too, maybe we could use our community coordinators to pop out a little advertisement saying, hey, the historic committee is needing some volunteers.
We can.
Can we do that?
Communications is putting
Cassette
something
time brought to you
together.
by the historical committee.
Right.
Communications is putting together something
Oh,
to
perfect, okay.
advertise it as well, and we can ask the community facilitators.
Yeah, because I would think that there's some history-minded people around that might go, oh, that'd be really cool, and just don't know about it.
The only question I have about that with the new code, and maybe this is a question for John, if we require that we have 3 people on that board, can we appoint if we only have 2, or are we in good shape, are we in violation of our own code if,
We might be in violation of our own code.
Yeah.
If it requires 3 and we only have 2.
Yeah.
so.
They just haven't been they've been inactive, basically, they haven't been active in any capacity.
For
Deal with those.
my benefit, would you just make sure that we're doing our best to comply with the code, if we need to find a 3rd member to appoint, I just wanna make sure
I
that
think
we're.
we'll find one.
Makes me miss Mary.
I think we'll find one, yeah.
And I also liked your idea about the youth council, if you wanna.
Yeah, I was just saying that, that, I'll get the meeting tomorrow, but I'm gonna have, Destiny, a great person, talk to the youth council. I think it would be really advantageous for a member of the youth council to serve on every one of those. Just, I think it gives them experience, exposure, it helps bring a youth perspective into each committee also, so we're gonna present that at the youth council. And I recommend that
That's a great
one of
idea.
them serve on each, cause I know Alexander Hill, he wants to serve on it.
You would probably serve on all of them.
I know, we might have to bring him back.
Oh, that's a great idea.
But yeah, for sure, yeah, so hopefully they would be willing and excited to do that.
Alright, any further discussion? Staff need any further direction? Okay, we'll move on to 3.6, we might actually get through this before the meeting. 3.6, discussion pertaining to council district boundaries due to annexation, Jackie.
So Kennecott annexed, and we do need to designate that area in a council district. Now, there's no residents there, so it's not going to change any of the numbers in the districts, and since it only abuts District 1, that would be my recommendation.
Congratulations.
I'll take it,
Okay,
as long as I get a tour.
we'll plan on having that on the consent agenda at the next meeting.
So I just wanna make it clear, that in my opinion, we're not complying with our code in regard to our districts, as our districts are so, unbalanced as to our percentage population per district. And so, in my opinion, I would not be supportive of just making a change without changing, without doing an entire redo. I'm only one, and obviously, there's enough direction from the council, I just wanna make that public statement that I would not be supportive of changing boundaries without actually doing a full readjustment.
So I'm supportive of this annexation, doesn't affect anything, it's just simply needing to go into the obvious geographic district where it makes sense. Not supportive of going through a full redistricting right now because we are, as we discussed, we're imminently going into a census, and it makes little sense to me to redistrict, to turn around and redistrict right again. So let's wait for the numbers, which we all know are woefully inadequate right now as we sit, because we're dealing with such high growth out here. So I am supportive of, anxiously awaiting those numbers and then redistricting accordingly.
I agree, I think it's a waste of time and money to do
Agree,
it
we
before then.
had a lengthy discussion about that a few minutes ago.
Yep, agreed.
All right, is there any further discussion by the council on that item? Sorry. Staff have the direction they need? Okay, we'll move on to 3.7, city manager updates. Brett?
Oh, we're there. We have a lot. If you
You
can
got
see,
15
Red
minutes.
was actually giving me a couple days ago and then a bunch of bananas are just sitting here, so let's go. I want to let Alan take a moment about the 2019 budget that's coming up and, the approach we're taking, and I think you're gonna love it. Here again, we're taking our step forward of, improving our budget process, which, as you all told me, we have a great budget process already, but we're gonna improve.
An award-winning budget
And we're
process.
gonna get a word coming up tonight, yeah.
Okay, what we're doing this year, in the past, up until about the 15th of March, it's just been me putting budgets together, okay? And this year, we formed a budget committee. There's Brett, Gordon, and Tammy, and myself. We met last week and went over all of our budget revenue projections for this year. We will be presenting our projections to you in the next meeting of revenue. As you'll see on here, our managers do have, with two exceptions, but most of them have their worksheets now where they're already starting to work on the budget. Our next meeting as a committee is going to be meeting with Travis, where he goes over the labor market, challenges we have and expectations for wage raises and benefits, and then we will bring that to you. So we're gonna bring you pieces of the big pieces of the budget before you actually see the budget. But also, this committee is meeting with each of them, including meetings with the managers, to all of us get a perspective of where it's at, so that when we give you the budget, all the major things should have been covered with you by that time, should have been approved by our committee and worked through the managers. You'll see here, there's a number of things on here before the middle of March, which, like I say, is when Brett got involved with me before, but it was just Brett and I even at that point. So we've expanded that. We're starting to take it as a step by step so that we can involve you in our process. We will bring the completed budget to you on the 9th of April. And then we will have until each of the meetings during that time will be for questions and answers, our public hearing. We expect to approve the budget on June 12th. But like I say, we've taken the step of the committee looking at everything. We want to bring the major things to you ahead of the budget. So when you get the budget, you got a pretty good picture of what you're gonna see.
Seems like it would be a lot less crazy for you too, to just.
That's our plan. And as you see, you know, I think Tammy's group had 4 or 5 days last year to completely put together what you saw.
It's amazing.
We've got it in this schedule where she should have 2 weeks.
5.5.
Let's not kill off.
You know, hopefully we can follow the schedule completely and she'll have a full 2 weeks to prepare the document. But also, as we go through each of these steps, we are preparing that portion of the budget so they get pieces all the way through before all the numbers are done.
I'm excited to see it.
I like
Even
that.
better.
And I would even
Version
ask,
2.0, yes.
I would even ask that maybe as that committee holds those meetings on those certain pieces of the budget, that you let members of the council know, because if someone was available and wanted to come, and again, this is always an educational process, I think, for all of us, and the more knowledge we can gain, but if you're open to at least letting us know when those dates are,
Absolutely.
some
In
of us are
fact,
available.
I gave ranges when we scheduled them because we've got to get a lot of schedules together, but we do now have specific dates for all of the meetings, so we can get the meeting dates out and
We can just put them on our
The answer
calendar.
is yes, we'll push it out to you if you make it,
It'd be
make it,
fly
not,
on the wall.
there's nothing you won't be seeing anyway, so.
Exactly.
Alan, while we got you queued up, you wanna talk about, Senator Force?
Standard and
S&P.
Poor's, we've been going through a review over the last several weeks with Standard and Poor's of our bond rating. We've been looking at our local economy, our, financial management within the city, and, we got, the report yesterday that's being published. Our bond rating has been upgraded from AA- to AA+.
Nice.
One step away from AAA, which is the top, so, Giant Bank is telling us this is worth probably 0.5%, on a new bond. So, you know, it's a substantial, well, yeah.
So I asked Alan, you know, the public doesn't understand what AAA or AA+ or AA- means. And we've educated the council every time that comes up, what AA- was. And to make this step, so I asked Alan to put that in the residents' terms, what's our credit report score?
Well, it's really probably in the range of an 800 to an 825. If you were looking at it.
That's good, right?
You can go get a new home, you can get a new home.
Well,
We're very, very happy about these.
When we got the AA-, you know, that was considered very high for a city like us. Now we've upgraded to a AA+. So things are looking very positive in our bonds.
And those who have gone through a bond rating, it's pretty interesting in-depth information they go through. They go through our CAPR, PAPR, our team, they look at our organization and how to repair bills, what's our phone balance. So we're very happy. We're very excited about this news. I want to share that with
Good job, Alan.
you. So, Michael Malloy, no. Gordon.
Gordon, there's 9 minutes left, just keep it moving.
2 minutes.
He actually,
One.
we got, yeah.
So we had our report from Bonneville Research a month ago. And so we're putting together what we think should be out in the Olympia Hills. And we're gonna sit down with the developer and try to see if we can get some kind of agreement we can bring back with you after that discussion. But I just wanted you to hear that and be aware of this going on. I know there's other discussions going on, but that's happening now.
So, love the fact that the results are coming out, would love to preempt said sit-down with the press conference I
Yes.
referenced earlier, and then work nicely into this idea.
We
That's what I
we
would
need
say
to
for the record.
adequately communicate the results of our study. So, because it's our residents, at least from what I can tell, most of them don't feel that we're defending ourselves enough.
Yeah, so
So
we need
having
to go
done all
out
this,
very publicly
We
with
spent the
this.
money, we put in the time to get these results, we need to publish them.
Yes, and it's not only preemptive to the legislative session that I was referencing before, but it's certainly preemptive to what we know as a continuing discussion on Olympia Hills, which has not involved the residents still.
Which
So-
they have also engaged pretty, they've engaged in
Aggressive communications
aggressive
program
communications
from
program.
their side, so
So
yes.
we need
we
to
have
combat that the other way for sure.
Okay, Michael Malloy.
Yes, we've had another resignation from the, planning commission, just for personal reasons, for family obligations. And, we just need the direction of the city council, your direction to allow us to start the process to, request applicants for the planning commission again.
We'll be invited into that process to be part of the interview process, like, we've had short of, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Just a refresher, how do we advertise that vacancy?
We typically have done it through social media.
Website,
Last time it seemed to be particularly effective, we did it in the newsletter, it seemed to be particularly effective.
everything we have at our disposal.
We'll put in all the usual places.
Okay.
I was sad to see Jessica resign.
Yeah.
She served very, very faithfully in that position for a number of years. Jessica and I were appointed together, yeah, I believe it was 9 years.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah, and she did a great job, but obviously situations change and you always have to weigh those and make some tough decisions, but, I think at some point, it probably would be appropriate to at least bring her in and recognize her for her service before the council.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Chief Carr, you wanna give us an update with your youth academy?
So, I'm sure you've heard about the youth academy. Jose Lopez, I'm gonna put you on the spot if you don't mind.
Oh,
Sorry, come up just a second. I'll
Yeah, wake up.
I'll let him tell you about the specifics of it, but what we've done really is because of the people we've hired, we've been able to start programs. And these programs they have a lot of continuity to them, which was most of my direction, was I want something that leads to something. Jose came to us with a youth academy, and that youth academy will lead to cadets, and we hope that cadets will lead to the academy for police officers. So go ahead, Jose, just tell us real quick about how many people we got, how quickly, how amazing it is. This is gonna be crazy.
Do it quick.
So, you guys that are familiar with the Citizens Academy for Adults, it's the same thing, but youth, 14 to 18, kind of recruiting the kids mostly from the high schools. We started last week and we have a total of 36 kids that have already signed up, and we don't even have the youth academy kids yet, so.
Youth council,
so far,
right, so, and we're gonna give some priority to the youth council to come on board and experience that at whatever number you allow it. And then we'll start to integrate that. What we've learned is we're gonna have to run 2 of these a year. It's become so exciting. We'll also run the Citizens Academy too. And we feel like that will probably fill up. We're gonna have to find some funding to maybe do 2 of those a year, just to get caught up for several years.
What's
More
your
people we can get in.
max participants for each of those?
On the youth, we're thinking 35 because we have to move.
We can do more, but 35 is what we'll start out with.
Yeah, because we have to move kids, so we're gonna take them to the jail and those kind of things, and we're running into some transportation cost issues.
So you're already over, 36
Yeah.
already, right?
And that doesn't include the youth council, which we wanted to integrate.
When you take them to jail, bring them back.
We will. So right away, we know that we're gonna have to run 2 probably each year to stay up with that, because we're getting new youth that are coming into it.
It's well worth it, and obviously,
Yeah.
now's a great time to look at those costs and figure out how we can try and budget for those as we head into the new budget cycle, but I'd like to see those in particular.
Okay. And the Citizens Academy we know is a huge draw. So we think out here, especially in our community, it'll be a big deal. We're gonna cut it to 8 weeks instead of 11, because there was kind of some stuff in the UPD model that didn't really, it was kind of long for those that went to it.
We also have some sponsors already staging up, trying to sponsor the shirts and stuff like that for us, so we're working that out.
And then we have some exciting things coming with DARE, but I'll save that for another meeting, because that is really awesome. We've had a national opportunity where they're gonna study us.
I'll just
Because we
mention
wanna
with
move
the
it from school to school.
academy stuff, I see it, not, from my point of view, not so much from a recruiting standpoint, but just knowledge. I mean,
Education.
Oh, right.
having gone through the citizens one, it was fantastic. I mean, I thought I understood a lot of what these guys do. I had no clue, no clue till I went through that, so.
Awesome, very enlightening, and so that you know, our vision has always been to be on the front end of schools and not on the back end where it's really expensive, right? So we've taken this DARE model, and I'm gonna have Jake come in and talk about it, but we have a continuity model in place where that's gonna go all the way through the high school. We will have kids that we're having to coach, mentor, hand it off from officer to officer to officer. So we will have, from the day they set foot into elementary till the day they graduate, some sort of oversight on that so that we make sure we can help that process through. So, but it's a big product. There's people from or nationally that are gonna come here to help us make that model so that they can study it.
Awesome.
Very, very good.
So I have 5 more items that I'll continue, and I'll ask you to, after the general work meeting, come back into a work meeting, then we'll have to go into a close work for property and litigation. And we need you here, so no one gets to go early. Then it's nods, okay?
Okay. Motion to adjourn the work meeting.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
And then,